Hello everyone, welcome to the channel of Next IAS. My name is Twinkle and we shall be discussing certain questions which are important for prelims 2022 and are also of current importance, right? So in this video or the series, we shall be discussing all the weekly questions that we've picked up which could be important for the upcoming prelim exams. Plus, in addition to that, the strategy would be not just solving the MCQ, but also knowing the topics, revising the topics and learning the missed out topics through these MCQs, right? So, I hope this video, the series proves to be helpful to all the aspirants. So, without wasting any time and causing any further delay, let us go ahead and take a look at the question. So this is question number 1 displayed on the screen. You can read aloud along with me. The word tardigrade was recently seen in the news. It refers to what? So here we are talking about tardigrade. There are 4 options given. It says, is it an invasive species? It is a microscopic multicellular organism, special kind of bamboo found in Northeast India, species of banana found in Andaman and Nicobar. Well, we don't know what it is exactly and we shall discover once we learn certain characteristics, facts and what actually tardigrades are, right? So let us start discussing what tardigrades are. Tardigrades are microscopic earthlings. Microscopic earthlings. So what are tardigrades? Tardigrades are microscopic earthlings. Microscopic meaning small and earthlings meaning inhabitant of planet Earth. Inhabitant of planet Earth. Alright. So that is how we define earthlings. I hope this much is clear to all of you. Now proceeding towards the next point, tardigrades are defined as the most durable forms of life on the planet Earth. I repeat, if you ever have to define tardigrades, you can say that they are the most durable forms of life on the planet Earth, right? So I used the word durable. I used the word durable. Now, if I am saying that they are the most durable forms of life on planet Earth, I have certain facts which actually supports this statement. Tardigrades can bear or they can tolerate sizzling heat. Sizzling heat. They can bear a minimum temperature like freezing cold. Freezing cold. So they can go along with lowest temperatures. They can survive in outer space zero pressure condition, right? They can go without food for decades and they won't die. They will still be alive. They will survive all these toughest conditions, right? That is why I say, or that is why they are considered to be the most durable forms of life on the planet Earth. Sizzling heat of at least 150 degrees Celsius. Yes, they can tolerate this much of a temperature. Freezing cold of around minus 272 degrees Celsius, right? So these are all the characteristics of a tardigrade. I hope this much is clear to all of you. Let us see the other thing about tardigrade. Tardigrades are multicellular. I said multicellular. Multicellular. Okay, they are multicellular organism. Multicellular organisms, right? So, if someone asks you whether tardigrades is a virus, no. Is it a bacteria? No. Tardigrades are lying in the category of microscopic animals. They are multicellular and they are microscopic animals. They are microscopic animals, right? Microscopic meaning small, like I told you, and animals. Multicellular. Now multicellular का क्या मतलब होता है? Like we define unicellular. Unicellular means something or an organism with just one cell. Multicellular means an organism with multiple cells. That's simple. So I think with this, the idea must be clear, and now I think every one of you are ready to eliminate the options based on the details that we've studied. Invasive species in the Western Ghats are the tardigrades? No. This option is wrong. Microscopic multicellular organisms are tardigrades? Yes. This option is correct. So answer is option number B. Let us see furthermore details about tardigrades. So like I told you, option B is the correct answer, and they are microscopic multicellular organisms. I've made you understand the entire meaning of the term, right? Are known to tolerate extreme physiochemical conditions through a latent state of life known as cryptobiosis. Now, you should be bothered about this term if you don't know what is cryptobiosis. So, let us discuss what is cryptobiosis. Cryptobiosis एक state होती है. It is a death-like state. Right? यहाँ पे the metabolic activities comes to a halt. Metabolic activities are suspended, we can say, are suspended. Okay. So tardigrades use this cryptobiosis to push themselves in a condition of reversible metabolic activities, right? So they actually freeze themselves in the condition whatever they are. They adapt all the outer conditions to adjust themselves and to survive anyhow in the extrememost condition, and that is only called as cryptobiosis. Now, you need to understand cryptobiosis is also called as anabiosis. Cryptobiosis is also called as anabiosis. Cryptobiosis के कुछ types होते हैं. There are certain types of cryptobiosis. For example, there is anoxybiosis, okay, which relates to oxygen. There is cyanobiosis, right? There is anhydrobiosis. So all these are types of cryptobiosis, and all this condition the tardigrades can tolerate and very well adjust itself into, right? So I hope all this is clear. Now another thing, that why are we discussing all these things about tardigrade? The significance of tardigrade is that tardigrades have been sent to the space. The scientists are using tardigrades to make a research and to know about its reaction on the lunar surface. Secondly, the tardigrades are also being sent to the space so that the scientists can make a research and find out about developing or building the protective equipments required for the astronauts who are on long space travel. So all these things are being done with the help of tardigrades. Okay, I hope this topic is clear to all of you. Let us take a look at the picture of the tardigrades. So this is how the tardigrades actually appear. So tardigrades are nothing but they are 8-legged creature, right, and multicellular organisms like I told you. So that's all. So I hope everything in this question must have been clear to all of you. Let us go ahead with question number 2. Okay, so here on the screen is question number 2. It is about RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, right? That is RCEP. So RCEP क्या है? RCEP is a free trade agreement. The first thing that you need to know about RCEP is that is it is a FTA, free trade agreement. So one topic is about RCEP, that is FTA. It is a free trade agreement. दूसरा जो एक चीज़ हमें इस क्वेश्चन में कवर करना है, इस क्वेश्चन के थ्रू कवर करना है, दैट इज CPTPP. So that is Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership. I will repeat that. Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is also an FTA. Okay. ये भी एक तरह की फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट है और RCEP भी एक तरह की फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट है. The first thing that you need to know about free trade agreements are these are the treaties between two or more nations so as to ease out or to give relaxations in the barriers of trade and investment. Okay, so FTA का यही objective होता है. Now, the question states that with reference to Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, consider the following statements. The RCEP is expected to eliminate all the tariffs, right? यहाँ पे this could be a problematic term, all the tariffs. Let us see, we shall check. The group includes India and China both but not the USA. One thing I will make clear is RCEP जो है RCEP जो है इसमें 10 एशियन नेशंस है. Okay, there are 10 Asian nations plus 5 others. 5 others में कौन कौन आता है? चाइना आता है, जापान आता है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया आता है, न्यूजीलैंड आता है और साउथ कोरिया आता है. Okay, so 5 other nations plus 10 Asian nations. तो टोटल मेंबर्स होगा इसके 15 कंट्रीज. टोटल कितना हो गया? 15 कंट्रीज. नाउ देयर इज वन सिनेरियो दैट यू नीड टू कीप इन माइंड कि इंडिया भी इसका पार्ट हुआ करता था. इंडिया, यू नीड टू रिमेंबर दिस, इंडिया इसका पार्ट हुआ करता था पर इंडिया ने अपने आप को विथड्रॉ कर लिया, राइट? अब RCEP से इंडिया ने क्यों विथड्रॉ किया ये भी मैं आपको बताना चाहूँगी. बिकॉज इंडिया को लगा कि ये एक बायस्ड ट्रीटी है, राइट? ये एक पैक्ट है जो बायस्ड है, विच इज़ नॉट कंप्लीटली सपोर्टिंग द वेल बीइंग ऑफ इंडिया, बट इट इज़ समवेयर बीइंग डोमिनेटेड बाय चाइनीज मोनोपोली. तो इंडिया को लगा कि इफ़ दे साइन दिस RCEP तो इस केस में ये होगा कि द इंडियन मार्केट वुड बी फ्लडेड बाय चाइनीज गुड्स एंड you know the domestic producers of India might suffer a lot of losses. इंडिया के जो डोमेस्टिक प्रोड्यूसर्स हैं उनको काफ़ी नुकसान हो सकता है एंड दिस पर्टिकुलर थिंग वुड नॉट प्रूव टू बी गुड फॉर इंडियन इकोनॉमी, राइट? एंड दैट इज़ वाई इंडिया डिड नॉट साइन, राइट? इंडिया ने बैकआउट कर लिया था 2019 में, राइट? और ये जो RCEP है ये 2020 में साइन की गई थी, नवंबर 2020 में. तो अब आप सोच रहे होंगे 2019 में इंडिया ने बैकआउट कर लिया, इसको फाइनली 2020 में साइन किया गया. सो द सीन वॉज इंडिया ने चलते निगोसिएशन से ही अपने आप को विड्रॉ कर लिया था. सो वाइल द नेगोशिएशन वॉज ऑन, इंडिया विड्रू इटसेल्फ, राइट? सो दैट इज द एग्जैक्ट सीन. सो यहाँ पे देखिए ये क्वेश्चन में कहा गया है द ग्रुप इंक्लूड्स इंडिया एंड चाइना बोथ बट नॉट द USA. एज सून एज यू सी इंडिया, दिस ऑप्शन is eliminated, right? As soon as you see India, the option is automatically eliminated. Now third option की तरफ बढ़ते हैं. Australia and Japan are members of RCEP and CPTPP, that is Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership. इसमें कौन कौन मेंबर्स है? वेल वी नीड टू नो कि सीपीटीपीपी के कौन कौन मेंबर्स है. अगर इसकी बात करें तो 11 एशिया पैसिफिक कंट्रीज इसके नेशन है, इसके मेंबर है. सीपीटीपीपी के 11 एशिया पैसिफिक कंट्रीज मेंबर है, जिसके अंदर ऑस्ट्रेलिया, एंड जापान भी आता है, राइट, इंक्लूडेड इन दिस 11 एशिया पैसिफिक कंट्रीज, राइट. तो ऑस्ट्रेलिया और जापान सीपीटीपीपी में भी इन्वॉल्व्ड है. सो ऑस्ट्रेलिया एंड जापान सीपीटीपीपी में भी इन्वॉल्व्ड है, और एट द सेम टाइम ऑस्ट्रेलिया और जापान आरसीईपी में भी इन्वॉल्व्ड है. दैट इज व्हाई दिस स्टेटमेंट इज करेक्ट. आई होप दिस इज क्लियर टू ऑल ऑफ यू, right? And if I say 11 Asia Pacific countries, so of course when I say Asia Pacific countries, it should be clear that the countries across the Asia Pacific rim, right? That's all. So let us take a look. I hope all these points are clear. Let us take a look at the explanation. If we miss out anything, we shall just take a look, right? So like I told you, अब ये पॉइंट तो हमने एलिमिनेट कर दिया, ये पॉइंट हमने कहा कि ये सही है. अब ये वाला जो एक पॉइंट है ना, ये ऑल नहीं हो सकता. दिस इज नॉट ऑल द टैरिफ्स. देयर इज अ सर्टेन टाइम पीरियड विच इज डिफाइंड. लेट अस सी व्हाट इज इट. इट इज 20 years, right? So you need to take a look. Not all. So they are eliminating a tariff, eliminating a range of tariff on imports within 20 years only, and not all the tariffs will be eliminated, right? Or statement 2 is correct. RCEP is a trade deal between 10 member association of Southeast Asian nations, like I told you, Asian countries and 5 other countries: China, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, South Korea. Statement 3 correct है, because Australia और जापान जो है RCEP के भी members है, प्लस CPTPP के भी मेंबर्स है, राइट. वन एडिशनल थिंग इज कि CPTPP में पहले यूएस मेंबर हुआ करता था, पर यूएस ने अभी विथड्रॉ कर लिया है इन द रीसेंट पास्ट, राइट. सो यू नीड टू रिमेंबर ऑल दीज पॉइंट्स. लेट अस गो अहेड. सो दीज आर द कंट्रीज, द एशियन कंट्रीज, 10 एशियन कंट्रीज, राइट. So yeah, I hope you are enjoying it. So let us go ahead with question number 3 now. Question number 3 में आप देख रहे हो कि which of the following countries have never signed the treaty on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, NPT. So it talks about non-proliferation, right? NPT. NPT को कहा जाता है Non-Proliferation Treaty. NPT को कहा जाता है Non-Proliferation Treaty, correct? So NPT का ऑब्जेक्टिव समझते हैं. So NPT actually aims, या फिर उसका ऑब्जेक्टिव है to limit the usage of nuclear weapons, right? So what does NPT do? NPT एक multilateral treaty है which aims to limit the usage of nuclear weapons. So the question is saying कि which countries have never signed? Please keep this in mind. Never signed the treaty, right? The non-proliferation treaty. I think let us proceed towards the answer selection and then we shall discuss further. इंडिया ने साइन किया? नहीं. इजराइल ने साइन किया? नहीं. साउथ स्वीडन ने किया? नहीं. पाकिस्तान ने साइन किया? ऑब्वियसली नहीं. इफ इंडिया डजंट साइन इट, पाकिस्तान वोंट साइन इट. पाकिस्तान डजंट साइन इट, इंडिया शुडंट साइन इट एक्चुअली. सो दिस इज वन थिंग. सो किसी भी कंट्री ने इसको कभी साइन नहीं किया, जो भी ऑप्शंस दिए गए हैं, राइट. सो डी इज द राइट आंसर. 1, 2, 3 and 4. All the 4 countries never signed it, right? अब इस चीज में हमें समझना ये है, इस चीज में हमें समझना ये है कि इसके मेंबर्स कौन कौन है, एनपीटी को किस किसने साइन किया है। वेल काफ़ी सारे कंट्रीज है, देर आर 191 कंट्रीज जिन्होंने साइन किया है, प्लस देर आर 5 न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट्स, NWS, न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट्स, राइट। I said nuclear weapon states, NWS. So these are the states who have developed nuclear weapons or have used nuclear weapons in the past. So NWS means nuclear weapon states. These are the states which have used or developed the nuclear weapons in the past, right? तो कितने nuclear weapon states है? There are 5. There are 5. There are 5 nuclear weapon states, right? They are with NPT, matlab they have signed the NPT treaty. There are plus 191 other countries, right? So these are the members of non-proliferation treaty. I hope this much is clear to all of you. Now next हमें ये देखना है कि there is something called as non-nuclear weapon states, right? Non-nuclear weapon states. Okay. I said non-nuclear weapon states. तो now there should be a question कि न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट्स को कैसे पहचाना जाए और नॉन न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट्स को कैसे पहचाना जाए. ओके, so the treaty actually defines the nuclear weapon states as the states who have built, who have developed or who have exploded nuclear weapons prior to January 1967, right? Prior to 1st January 1967. तो जो न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट्स है, जो न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट्स है, ये वो स्टेट्स हैं जिन्होंने न्यूक्लियर वेपन डेवलप किया, उसका यूज किया प्रायर टू 1st January 1967, राइट? तो ये क्राइटेरिया है न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट्स को रिकग्नाइज करने का. बाकी सारी जो स्टेट्स है उनको कहा गया है नॉन न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट्स. बाकी सारी जो स्टेट्स हैं उनको कहा गया है नॉन न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट्स. आई थिंक यहीं से एक बायस्ड अप्रोच हमें दिखाई देती है और जिसकी वजह से इंडिया ने कभी इस ट्रीटी को साइन नहीं किया. तो चलिए डिस्कस करते हैं फर्दर. बिफोर वी गो अहेड वी ऑल्सो नीड टू नो कि न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट्स है कौन कौन से. इफ वी डिस्कस अबाउट द न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट्स, if we discuss about the nuclear weapon states, there are 5 states declared as the nuclear weapon states based on the criteria that I told you previously. So number 1 is China, number 2 is France, number 3 is Russia, okay, and then United Kingdom and United States of America. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. These are all the nuclear weapon states. Now let us see, like I told you, इसका जो आंसर है वो that is D. 1, 2, 3 and 4 किसी ने भी इसे साइन नहीं किया. Let us proceed towards the explanation of this question and we shall revise if you are missing out on any topic, right? Now, Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty came into force in the year 1970, which seeks to inhibit the spread of nuclear weapons. We've already studied that. A total of 191 states, yes, and nuclear weapon states कितने हैं? 5. We've studied that. तो ये सब उसके members हैं. They've signed the treaty. The provision of the treaty envisage a review of the operation of the treaty every 5 years. This is something that you have to remember. कि the review of this treaty would take place in a span of how many years? 5 years, right? India, Israel, South Sudan, Pakistan never signed the nuclear proliferation treaty. We've already discussed that. लेकिन एक चीज़ है जो यहाँ पे आपको नोट करना है, that is North Korea. North Korea previously signed it, but now it declared the withdrawal, right? तो North Korea previously इस treaty के support में था, पर अभी उन्होंने withdrawal declare कर दिया है in the past. India refused to sign on the grounds that the nuclear weapons, because no clear plan was mentioned for de-armament, right? Now there are certain things you need to understand about NPT. NPT says that all the nations who have the nuclear weapons or who have developed the technology have no obligation to drop it, right? मतलब इसको अगर हिंदी में हम समझे तो वो सारे कंट्रीज जिनके पास न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स और न्यूक्लियर टेक्नोलॉजी डेवलप हो चुकी है, उनके ऊपर कोई बंदिश नहीं है, कोई पाबंदी नहीं है कि वो उस चीज़ को त्याग दे या फिर उसे ड्रॉप कर दे, राइट? Whereas the nations who did not yet develop, who did not yet discover, or who do not yet own the nuclear weapons are restricted to own them or pursue them any further. तो ये जो चीज़ें हैं ये थोड़ी biased हो जाती है, because इंडिया के लिए ये एक थ्रेट है. दैट इज़ वाई इंडिया डिडंट साइन इट, बिकॉज इंडिया डजंट फील दैट इट इज सेफ in amongst the nation who are already having the nuclear weapons and the nuclear technology developed, right? So this is one thing. So all in all, if I give you an example, if one country is here and the other country is at this level, so the treaty stops this country here and the treaty obstructs the development of this country here, whereas this country has achieved the development. This country has achieved the development, right? The treaty does not let this country, which is at a lower level, to reach up to this level and then, freeze the thing. So that is the problem, or India is finding it biased, and that is why India did not sign it, and North Korea declared the withdrawal. So let us go ahead. The 5 nuclear weapon states we've already discussed: China, France, Russia, United Kingdom, United States, right? Okay, so the next question is about the Pangong Zhao Lake was in news. With reference to it, consider the following statements. The Pangong Zhao Lake. The Pangong Zhao Lake. That is what we're talking about in this question. So, yeah. So these are the statements and we need to verify whether they are right or they are wrong. Accordingly, we'll choose the option, right? It is an endorheic lake. It says endorheic lake. Now, first of all, you need to know the meaning of endorheic, right? You need to know the meaning of endorheic. If I say endorheic, endorheic means what? It means landlocked. It means landlocked. It also means that it does not merge in oceans or sea, right? It also means, endorheic lake also means that it does not merge in oceans or seas. Endorheic lakes कैसे होते हैं? ये usually saline होते हैं. Okay? ये usually क्या होते हैं? ये saline होते हैं. दूसरा, endorheic lakes को ही कुछ और भी कहा जाता है. You need to note that. Endorheic lakes को terminal lake भी कहा जाता है. ओके, या तो इसे टर्मिनल लेक कहा जाता है या फिर इसे सिंक लेक कहा जाता है, राइट? सो दिस इज ऑल अबाउट द endorheic लेक. नाउ वी स्टडीड दिस वर्ड लैंडलॉक्ड. Well, I don't know, but do you guys know about the double landlocked thing? And if anyone doesn't know, we'll be discussing it here. So there's something called as double landlocked. Of course, this is just a fact I'm sharing just an extra information. Double landlocked. Double landlocked, why am I discussing it? Because there are only 2 countries in the entire world ki jo double landlocked hai, right? One is Uzbekistan. Okay. Number 2 is Liechtenstein. Okay. So Liechtenstein and Uzbekistan. Okay. So there are only 2 double landlocked countries. One is Uzbekistan, other one is Liechtenstein. Okay. So I hope this is clear. This is just for your information that I am sharing here. You can remember this as a interesting fact, right? So हमने अभी क्लियर किया कि एंडोरिक लेक है, जो पंगोंग ज़ाओ लेक है ये एंडोरिक लेक है, और एक चीज़ है कि ये ना दिस इज़ बिटवीन तिब्बत एंड इंडिया, तो मैक्सिमम पार्ट ऑफ पंगोंग ज़ाओ लेक इज़ इन तिब्बत, so 2/3 of the lake is controlled by China, and only 45 kilometers of this lake is in Indian boundary. So getting back to the explanation, so is it an endorheic lake? Yes. The lake is identified under the Ramsar Convention as a wetland of international importance. The lake is identified is, which is wrong. It is in process. It is in process. So it is in process of being recognized under the Ramsar Convention as a wetland of international importance, right? So that is why this statement is wrong. The next one is an inner line permit is required to visit the lake. Again, there is a term called as inner line permit. So what is inner line permit? ILP. Inner line permit एक तरह का travel document होता है. Okay. ये एक तरह का travel document होता है which is required to visit restricted areas. Right? I hope this is clear to you. So inner line permit क्या है? वो एक तरह का travel document है जो restricted areas को visit करने के लिए कंपल्सरी होता है. तो ये टूरिस्ट के लिए बेसिकली एक तरह का प्रोविज़न है. तो डोमेस्टिक ट्रैवलर्स को होता है, ये अलग से लेना पड़ता है, फॉरेनर्स को लेना पड़ता है. एज पर माई नॉलेज डोमेस्टिक टूरिस्ट के लिए ये लगभग 3 वीक्स के लिए मिलता है, परमिट जो है 3 वीक्स के लिए मिलता है. फॉरेनर्स के लिए भी समवॉट 10 to 15 days, not pretty sure about it, but yeah, it's around that only. Now next let us see. This is correct, this is not correct because of this, and this is correct. Inner line permit is required. So let us see which option is correct. 1 and 3, 1 and 3 only. Option C is the right answer. Let us move towards the explanation. If we have missed out anything, let us see. Yes, it is the endorheic lake is spanning, like I told you, eastern Ladakh and west Tibet. The lake is in the process, right? I told you it is in the process. Question के जो option में था वो था कि it is already there, you know, but it is in the process of being a part of this Ramsar Convention as a wetland of international importance. Statement 3 में कहा गया है inner line permit is required, right? क्योंकि ये Sino-Indian line of actual control पे lie करता है. यहाँ पे देखिए Sino means China. The prefix Sino means China here. Okay, so don't get confused. The prefix Sino indicates China. Alright, I hope it's clear to all of you. I hope you guys are enjoying, right? So let us go to question number 5 now. He triggered a renaissance in Kerala in the 19th century, his Pallikudam movement setting up schools in church premises. So number 1, you need to make a note, what was Pallikudam movement about? It was about setting up schools in the church premises, right? Now, Actually, in this question, they are describing a personality and we have to recognize the personality they are talking about. He enabled universal access to education. Yes. In 1831, he founded the first indigenous religious congregation for men known as the CMI, Carmelites of Mary Immaculate, CMI, Carmelites of Mary Immaculate. His poem Anastasyude Rakta Saksham, the martyrdom of Anastasia, is considered as the first minor epic in Malayalam. Okay, so this is interesting. The contributions are really great. So we need to recognize the personality they're talking about, right? So what we'll do is, we'll first recognize the personality and then we shall discuss further about that particular person. So Anastasia, सबसे पहले ये जान लीजिए, Anastasia was a saint. Okay, she was a saint. The next thing is looking at the options. Was this person Baba Amte? No. Vinayak Damodar Savarkar? No. Dayananda Saraswati? No. So who was this person? It was Kuriakose Elias Chavra. Okay, it was Kuriakose Elias Chavra we are talking about. So he was a saint. He was also a saint, right? So Saint Kuriakose Elias Chavra, that's how we call them. Let us know more about Saint Chavra. So Saint Chavra जो है वो एक एजुकेशनिस्ट थे, वो एक एंटरप्रेन्योर थे, वो एक पोएट थे, वो एक सोशल रिफॉर्मर थे, राइट? सो इन्होंने एक मूवमेंट चलाई, लाइक वी स्टडीड, पल्लीकुदम मूवमेंट. So he said कि every church premises should have schools, okay, because he was an enthusiast who wanted to promote literacy, who wanted to promote education, because back in the past, education was a privilege given only to the elites, but Saint Chavra insisted and Saint Chavra gave his best to make it universally for all. Matlab, he promoted the universal access of education, right? And he actually fought for it. So that's why this Pallikudam movement. He also set up St. Joseph Press, okay? So in Kerala, he set up St. Joseph Press. It was not the first press, but let me make it clear, it was the first press which was set up without the help of the foreigners, right? So that was the major contribution of Saint Chavra. I hope it's clear to all of you. Let us see if there's anything more in the explanation that we're missing out. We shall discuss that. Well, like I told you, all church premises should have schools, or else he threatened that if there are no schools in the church premises, the churches should better be shut down, right? And he enabled universal access to education that we were discussing. We discussed about the Pallikudam movement, right? And he triggered the Renaissance in Kerala in the 19th century. And like we studied, social reformer the, वो एक poet थे, वो educationist थे, and he was an entrepreneur. And CMI के बारे में we actually studied. And to reduce the dropouts in the school, he actually started programs like midday meals so that Dalits and the poors can actually take advantage of education, and they could be, you know, provided with adequate resources to get themselves literate. So this is all about the contribution. And of course, in the question we studied about Anastasyude Rakta Saksham, which means the martyrdom of Anastasia. Okay, this is basically in Sanskrit. So he actually wrote it, and it is considered as the first minor epic in Malayalam. Okay, so I hope everything's clear to you by now. Well, that's all. and that is the person Saint Kuriakose Elias Chavra. You can take a look at the great personality. Alright, going ahead, let us talk about Sankalp Smarak. What is Sankalp Smarak? Okay, so Sankalp Smarak is in Andaman Nicobar, and it is actually built to pay the tribute to the soldiers for the sacrifice and for all the contribution they make for the well-being of Mother India, for the well-being of the citizens of India, right? So it is a tribute, and there are certain values which is enshrined, and that is a contribution of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, right? So I think without much of a confusion, Mahatma Gandhi is the wrong option, Jawaharlal Nehru is the wrong option, Subhash Chandra Bose is the right option, Chandrasekhar Azad is the wrong option, right? So Sankalp Smarak ke bare mein whatever informations are required, let us take a look. Like I told you, it was dedicated to the nation by Commander-in-Chief Andaman Nicobar exactly 78 years after Subhash Chandra Bose's arrival on 29 December 2021. Right? Sankalp Smarak, like I told you, it is a tribute not only to the resolve of the soldiers of the Indian National Army and their innumerable sacrifices, but also it reminds us of the values enshrined by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose enshrined certain values. What are those values? It is CDS, okay? How can you remember these values? You can just remember it in the form of CDS, like CDS exams and everything. We usually keep using these terms, okay? UPSC aspirants might also be very much acquainted to these terms of like CDS. So CDS, what is it? Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose enshrined CDS. It is commitment, duty and sacrifice, okay? So I would write it down. It is commitment, duty and sacrifice. It is CDS, okay? इसी को कहा जाता है निष्ठा, कर्तव्य और बलिदान. हिंदी में अगर इसे कहा जाए तो, इंग्लिश में you can remember simply CDS. Commitment, duty and sacrifice. So I hope this is clear to all of you. Let us go ahead. So that's the picture. We are on question number 7 now. The sea of accost is situated between which of the following bodies, right? For this, I don't want to discuss much without the map. So let's go towards the map first. This is the map, Sea of Accost. You can, okay. So this is the Sea of Accost we are talking about. Let us just make an observation of the map first. So यहाँ पे हम देख सकते हैं, this is Sakhalin Gulf, Sakhalin Island, right? This is Sakhalin Island, Sakhalin Island, Kamachatka Peninsula, right? This is Kuril Island, this is Hokkaido, then I think, yeah, this is Accost, this is Sea of Accost, right? Now you see, one side, you need to mark this thing which we will be discussing. यहाँ पे, you just make a note that there is Shantar Islands, and here there is peninsula, right? So all these things we will be just incorporating it in the discussion once we get back to the question. So just see, the Accost, Sea of Accost is between the Sakhalin and the Kamachatka. Okay, let us go back. Let us go back to the question and check. The Sea of Accost is situated between which of the following bodies? Now I think without any delay, everyone should be ready with the answer. Kamachatka Peninsula and Bering Sea, no, we did not come across Bering Sea. It's between, right? So, Sakhalin Island, yes, we clearly saw that in the map. Kamachitka Peninsula? Yes, we clearly saw that in the map. Okay, so I think this is a very simple question. It's completely a map based question. अब दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि ये जो एक Okhotsk, Sea of Okhotsk, it's a marginal sea. Let us see कि क्या होता है marginal sea. Okay. So like I told you, it is a marginal sea. Marginal sea का मतलब क्या होता है? It is surrounded by either island, peninsula and archipelagos. Archipelagos is a chain of islands, right? Anyone who doesn't know or is not acquainted with this term, archipelagos, it is chain of islands. Peninsulas. So I showed you in the map. One side there was Shantar, other side there was Kamachitka Peninsula, right? So that is why it is a marginal sea. So एक बार read out कर लेते हैं. Marginal sea may be defined as a division of an ocean that is partially surrounded by archipelagos, islands or peninsulas, and is generally much shallower than the open oceans. It is much shallower. I hope this is clear. One important term, the Sea of Okhotsk. Okhotsk Russian settlement का एक नाम था. So Okhotsk is a Russian settlement. You need to remember that, okay? And on the map, I think everything was clear. We saw this Kamachitka Peninsula, Hokkaido, we saw that. We saw Sakhalin, we saw Kuril Islands, right? So everything must have been clear, I hope. So yeah, we are on question number 7 already. Let us take a look to the next question now. So let us take a look at question number 8. Question number 8 is talking about the Trincomalee deal. Trincomalee deal is with Sri Lanka. Okay, India is indulging in a deal with Sri Lanka, that is Trincomalee deal. So first of all, let us know what is Trincomalee. Trincomalee is a place in Sri Lanka. It is a place in Sri Lanka. Okay, I hope this is clear. We shall also take a look at the map, and it is located in China Bay. For your information, the location is China Bay. Trincomalee lies on China Bay, right? So that is one advantage of this deal. We shall discuss further. So we have to just rewind back and check, like during the World War II, the Britishers actually used Trincomalee as a very strategic area, right? Trincomalee was a refueling station during World War II, and it served the purpose to the best limits possible. So it's a very strategic location, Trincomalee, right? And India getting in deal with Sri Lanka for this Trincomalee deal, definitely it shall be of a huge benefit for our country, right? So let us see. So when I said it's a refueling station, so I think idea must have been clear. Cyber security automatically goes off. Defense deal, no. Fertilizer deal, no. Refueling station must be something about oil deal, okay? So it is oil farm, building an oil farm. So all in all, यहाँ पे upper tank farm है और लोअर टैंक फार्म है, राइट? तो अपर टैंक फार्म समवेयर 800 एकर्स में है, एकर्स ऑफ लैंड में स्प्रेड है. लोअर टैंक फार्म जो है वो समवेयर 15 एकर्स में है. ओके, टोटल 99 टैंक्स है. ओके, टोटल 99 टैंक्स यहाँ पे है. कैपेसिटी की अगर हम बात करें, it is 12,000 kiloliters. Okay, so it's that huge a capacity. 12,000 kiloliters is oil farm की capacity है, right? But there's one challenge actually. ये deal है किस बारे में? After Sri Lanka got its independence, the Britishers abandoned this place, right? And this place has now completely deteriorated. Now it needs to be refurbished, it needs to be renovated to get in usage again, so as to declare it fit for use, right? So that is how it is all about. So let us see. Like I told you, Sri Lanka is moving ahead on finalizing plans for jointly developing with India a massive oil tank farm. Yes, oil tank farm at Trincomalee. During the Second World War, the Britishers built the Trincomalee tank farms to serve as a refueling station. Okay, refueling station adjacent to the Trincomalee port, an enviable natural harbour. The nearly century-old tanks need to be refurbished at the cost of millions of dollars if they are to be fit for use again, and that is the deal between Sri Lanka and India, to refurbish it and get it in the condition where it can be used again. Trincomalee is from a geostrategic point of view of India, it is a counterbalance to the Hambantota port, which is backed up by China, right? So Hambantota port, which is substantially backed up by China, so this could be a counterbalance. Okay, this deal, the development of Trincomalee port could be one advantage to India in so many several aspects. Also, this is a very good location for international trade routes. So all in all, this is going to be a very good deal, right? So I hope the things must have been clear. Let us go ahead and proceed towards the other question. So yeah, this is the map picturization that I am sharing. This is Sri Lanka, that is Trincomalee, and I have already mentioned about the details of it. Right. Question number 9 says, the Golan Heights seen recently in the news belongs to which country? Now there is a history involved in this, right? Golan Heights. So the first thing is, when we talk about Golan Heights, it's a disputed land between Israel and Syria, right? So Jordan and Lebanon are not in scene yet. Israel and Syria के बीच में ही इनका एक dispute चल रहा है. Golan Heights is basically a plateau area which is fertile, which has good water resource, and that is why there's a lot of hustle and bustle, and there's a tussle actually to get it acquired. So there was a 6-day war in the 1967. There was a 6-day war wherein the Golan Heights, which was previously with Syria, was acquired by Israel, right? And currently it is with Israel. So I think the answer is clear. The currently Golan Heights is under Israel, and Syria lost it during the 1967 war, which lasted for 6 days, and that's how it has been. Let us refer to the solution for any further details. Like Golan Heights refers to the border region captured by Syria by Israel during the 6-day war of 1967. Like I told you, it is bounded by the Jordan River and the Sea of Galilee on the west, Mount Hermon on the north, the seasonal Wadi al-Raqqad on the east, and the Yarmouk River on the south. So I think for this, let us not discuss much. Let's take a look at the map. So if this is a thing here, this is Golan Heights, this is Syria, Israel, it's between Syria and Israel, Jordan River that we were reading, this is Mount Hermon, this is the Yarmouk River, the Sea of Galilee, okay. So all these places are to be noted, right, that was also given in the explanation, and that's the map view of it. So that's how it is, and I hope this must have been clear to you. Let us go to question number 10 now. Consider the following statements with reference to Election Laws Amendment Bill 2021. It aims at linking Aadhaar to the voter ID. Yes, this statement is correct. Why? Because the registration officer is actually asking for your Aadhaar number, right? So, of course, it is evident that it aims at linking Aadhaar to the voter ID. People would be debarred from voting if they do not link the Aadhaar within 6 months from the effective date? No. Well, can you imagine that anyone would be debarred of voting here? No. So, debarred, not at all. So, if they fail to present the Aadhaar, they might present certain other documents. So, there are certain different provisions made, okay, for this particular issue. It would amend the Representation of the People's Act 1950 and 1951, yes. It has been said that the amendment would take place in the People's Representation Act 1950 and 1951. So this is an undeniable statement. So this is correct. Okay, so 1 and 3. C is the right option. Let us proceed towards the explanation part and check if we missed out any point of discussion. Like I told you, the Election Law Amendment Bill also seeks to allow the electoral registration officers to ask for Aadhaar numbers. I told you this, right? From persons already included in the electoral roll for the purpose of authentication of entries in the electoral roll. We discussed this point, and that is why statement 1 turned out to be the right statement. Statement 2 says, Amendment Bill makes it clear that no application for inclusion of name in the electoral roll shall be denied. Whereas in the statement of the question it was said that would be debarred, which is wrong. No entries in the electoral roll shall be deleted for the inability of any individual to furnish or intimate Aadhaar number, right? Even if the person is not able to present the Aadhaar number, people will be allowed to furnish documents as may be prescribed. Other documents, right? I was telling you about this. Various sections of the Representation of the Peoples Act 1950 and 1951 will be amended. So that statement was true as well. Alright, so yeah, well, that's all about it. So let's learn together, let's grow together, let's know together, and let's crack together, right? I hope you must have enjoyed learning with me, and I shall be coming up with more such questions, more such discussions, and wishing you all the very best, okay, for the upcoming prelims 2022. Thank you so much.